And so where do you want to start our story?
How about 10 years ago? Spring of 2014. It starts in a hospital room, in a rehab center room. And a guy named Chuck has just gotten his leg cut off.
Proceed.
So Chuck, he's got a very serious bone disease. This is the second time he's had to have a limb amputated. He had his left arm cut off before. Now he's had his left leg cut off. And he's trying to recuperate from this very serious operation. And he gets a call from one of his oldest friends, a guy named Mike. They grew up near the Bills Stadium, and they're like Bills super fans. They are Buffalo Bills fanatics.
We moved here with my parents in 1971. They built the stadium, the Bills' new stadium, then in 1973. Whole life has been growing up with the Bills, the Buffalo Bills.
And what does Mike want at this moment?
Mike's got kind of a secret mission for him.
I was getting my leg amputated. Mike comes to me in the hospital and says, "You got to do something." I said, "What do you mean? I just got my leg cut off 2 days ago. What do you want me to do?"
And so the mission, as I watch and listen to Chuck wearing clearly a Grateful Dead tie-dye shirt.
Yeah, the two of them are super deadheads. Been to a million shows together.
Of course they have. Their secret mission, if you had to explain it, was what? What's happening here?
The mission has to do with the Buffalo Bills. And a couple of days later, Mike brings in a kind of, I don't know, what you call it, like a team.
Oh, they're assembling a team.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
It's that scene in the movie.
Yeah.
Are we doing Ocean's 11 in Orchard Park?
He's the Clooney figure. Mike is the Clooney figure, and he's assembling a crew. And it's like there's a former cop in the crew. There's a random T-shirt maker guy in the crew. There's some guy that told me some cockamamie story about an Elmo suit and a TV matchmaker. And then there's Chuck.
And so the relevant question, I feel like, in any good secret mission, is Mike in charge here?
Mike is sort of tactically in charge. But the big man, the man he's working for, his client, is f***ing Donald Trump.
Of course it is.
Yeah.
And so Donald Trump wants to do what? To who?
Right. So a few days before Chuck had his leg cut off, the longtime owner of the Buffalo Bills had died.
Ralph Wilson died like 2014, and he was the owner of the Bills. So Trump was going to buy the Bills, put a bid in. He was like the fourth or fifth guy running to buy the Bills.
But in order to get the team, he had a very high-profile rival that needed to be disqualified in some way from the bidding. This is his pre-presidential rival.
And so the rival in question that Donald Trump is trying to take down using this squad, this team, is who?
John Bon Jovi.
It just feels like I'm trapped in a Mad Lib.
If you think you're trapped in a Mad Lib now, wait till the rest of this comes out.
Okay, so there are Trump stories that do connect to sports and to music, and I just don't have interest in investigating them for you, frankly. This includes the current story in the news right now about how the wife of Patrick Mahomes, the great Chiefs quarterback, liked a Trump post on Instagram, even though she is friends with Taylor Swift. And so, Trump goes and makes fun of Taylor Swift and blah, 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 whatever. But the reason you're about to go on a journey with Noah Shachtman, a longtime magazine reporter and the former editor-in-chief of Rolling Stone, is because there is one story in this specific genre that I did need to find out about. And it's a story that Noah reported for us in partnership with Rolling Stone, which is publishing the written version of it today. Because I suspect that the story of Donald Trump and his quest to finally become an NFL owner, culminating with his attempt to buy the Buffalo Bills by way of this guy named Chuck and his friend Mike, and this truly bizarre scheme against John Bon Jovi, can actually explain a lot.
Donald Trump has rarely been as horny as he has been for football teams. He has tried over the last, let's call it 45 years, to buy, I would say, a half a dozen different teams at different points.
Jeez.
Yeah. He tried to buy the Colts at one point.
Right.
Back when they were leaving Baltimore.
So that was like the early 80s.
Early 80s.
Yeah.
He denied, of course, ever wanting to buy the Colts when he lost the bid.
That seems to be a pattern that we will return to in future sequels.
Yeah. Then he allegedly passed on buying the Cowboys a couple years after that.
Explain that to me, because the Cowboys, as we now understand them, are the greatest investment that a person could have made.
Right. And so, of course, that's the one that Donald Trump passed on. It was a $50 million offer that was going to be in place for the Cowboys. The Cowboys are now worth $10 billion with a B.
Yes, the most valuable franchise in American sports.
Yeah. He said that only a loser would buy the Cowboys.
Only a loser can buy the Dallas Cowboys. The Dallas Cowboys have been so good so long and the expectation level has been so high and will continue to be so high, that if the Dallas Cowboys become just a good team or above average team, the man who owns that team is going to be called a loser. So there he is.
Good take.
Yeah, good take. Hot take.
Yeah.
Trump passed on that one so he could instead make a low dollar bid for a club called the New Jersey Generals.
All right, so again, we are in the 1980s, and the New Jersey Generals, as you may know, were not an NFL team. They were, in fact, a team in the United States Football League, or USFL as it's known. This upstart football league and aspiring challenger to the conquering NFL that was playing football in the spring instead of in the fall, which meant that they avoided going head-to-head against the NFL schedule directly. And Donald Trump, having already tried and failed to buy the Colts, an actual NFL team, bought the Generals after the USFL's very first season in 1983. At which point, Trump naturally wanted to make a big splash. And also start taking credit for the USFL entirely.
Something that's interesting, and again, in this case, it's not just buying. We're not just buying a team and we're going to, through draft choices, we're going to make it better and better. We're creating a team, but we're creating a whole league.
I do feel like the Trump attraction to football is also about, of course, all the stuff that's not football.
Right. There's the tiny outfits of the cheerleaders that Trump is very attracted to. There's the popularity of it that he's very attracted to.
The crowds.
The crowds, yeah. And then there's very much that sense that it was, this is the most exclusive club in rich guy world. And one of Trump's longtime people used that exact kind of phrase, that this was the most exclusive of clubs for him to be a member of.
When you mention the phrase, one of Donald Trump's people,
yeah,
I do get the sense as we go through the history of this that his people, I'll call them goons. I feel like that's legally defensible at this point. They are both people that you would not think a very exclusive person would necessarily be enlisting for these missions. Also, sometimes, though, according to various, books and records, it's sometimes just him using a different name on the phone.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, famously, he was his own press agent. He would call up people and be like, "Hi, this is John Barron."
Okay, what's your first name, John Barron. Most of the assets have been consolidated to Mr. Trump, because you have down Fred Trump. But I think you can really use Donald Trump.
John Barron called up because he had a hot tip for the New York papers that Lawrence Taylor, the famous New York Giants defensive linebacker extraordinaire, was going to at one point sign with the New Jersey Generals.
And then there's the Lawrence Taylor situation. He signed a contract with Trump's Generals, but he's still under contract with the Giants.
If Lawrence Taylor decides to sign a contract with the USFL, even if it's in 1987 or 1988, which is 3 or 4 years, that is tremendous credibility for the USFL. And the NFL knows it, and they really do know it.
It was news to Lawrence Taylor that this was happening. He had been talking to Trump, and the whole thing was, hey, I might be interested, but we got to keep this on the DL because I'm going to be playing for the Giants for a couple of years, but maybe I'll come over and join your team. And it's important to note that the USFL at that point was playing in the spring. So they were playing where the NFL was not.
Right.
Right? And they were doing pretty good. They were bringing pretty good ratings. They were bringing in pretty
Big
good
names.
crowds. Big names. They brought in, famously future U.S. Senate candidate Herschel Walker.
Who could forget?
So anyway, Trump immediately is like, no, we're going directly to the fall. We're going to challenge these guys immediately. To be clear, this is business suicidal.
It's not going to work. It was obvious to everybody.
Yeah, there's no chance of this working, like 0%. And Trump somehow, because he's Trump, manages to convince all these owners to do it anyway.
Are you at war with the NFL? Well, I don't know. We're not at peace with the NFL, I guess, but I don't know if you can classify it as a war. We're in competition for their players. They've done a good job over the years. They've done a great job in some cases over the years, and we're certainly looking to compete with the NFL. And the answer is we are in a form of war right now with the NFL. There's no question about it.
But the end game, in terms of like, the NFL, USFL forever.
Yeah.
His economic strategy, insofar as there was one, was what?
It was just a Donald Trump economic strategy. As Jeff Pearlman documented in his incredible book, Football for a Buck, which is about the USFL, he told his fellow USFL upstart owners that he was rich enough to buy a real big boy NFL team, and they weren't, and, they could go to hell.
Good teammate.
Yeah, good teammate. Then there's something else going on, and honestly, I don't feel like we ever figured out exactly, or it ever came out exactly what the strategy was. But it was either something like, hey, we're going to move to the fall and force the NFL to basically absorb us at some point.
A merger,
maybe.
To make the problem of the USFL go away. Stop taking our players, stop taking our real estate.
Yeah.
We don't want them competing.
Or this was a way for Donald Trump personally to get an NFL team on the cheap. As in, maybe it doesn't have to be a whole league merger. Maybe it's just merge me.
Right. Again, good teammate.
Yeah.
A merger was the end game. Spoiler alert, NFL's like, no.
Correct.
And so Trump's move, legally speaking, what recourse does he have at that point?
He tries something that seems completely insane, which is he sues the NFL for antitrust violations.
The United States Football League wants more than $1.25 billion in damages from the National Football League, the NFL. The antitrust action was filed yesterday. It alleges that the NFL has unfairly monopolized pro football and threatens the livelihood of the USFL. Some people are saying that you, Donald Trump, what you really want is to get Donald Trump's football team into the NFL.
Totally false.
Totally false.
Totally false.
And what about a merger? Some are saying that what you really want is some kind of a merger between the USFL and the NFL.
If it should ever happen, David, if it should, I'm not going to sit here and say, well, it's not going to happen and we don't want it. If it should ever happen, it should happen. But we want to deal from a position of strength. This league has a great potential. If we weren't discriminated against so badly as the NFL has done, this league would be very, very successful. It's already done relatively well.
And the crazy part, like the truly crazy part of this crazy suit, is that it works.
So the suit, the money, the damages alleged, I mean, it is a $1.32 billion suit now.
Yeah, and that's in 80s dollars,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
So it's a ton of money. And and it works because the NFL in their genius actually had, what's that line from The Wire? Like, don't take notes on a criminal conspiracy?
Right.
Is you taking notes on a criminal fucking conspiracy? What the fuck is you thinking, man?
the NFL violated that rule of thumb and actually had like a whole strategy document that was like how to block out the USFL, written by this very famous Harvard Business School professor.
Of course.
That, came out in court. And so guess what? Yeah, it looked like the NFL actually did violate antitrust laws.
And so the USFL and Donald Trump, they get what for winning this case?
So remember, they've sued for more than $1 billion. And the jury awards them $1. That's right. $1. Basically, they say, you're right. Yeah. They did violate antitrust. But guess what? You shouldn't be rewarded for engaging in this suicidal, insane move to move to the fall. So here's your $1. Go be happy. And the league had been totally counting on that money. Like totally counting on that money. So the league basically folds overnight. And so Donald Trump's need to get an NFL franchise on the cheap instead bankrupts and destroys this entire institution.
That tracks.
Yeah.
So all this adds up to me, right?
Yeah.
Massive failure, infamous failure with the USFL. Didn't get the Colts, didn't get the Cowboys. But what team then, because you mentioned about a half dozen of these attempts, what team is Donald Trump onto next, given that the USFL is now in the rearview mirror?
Yeah, so it's a couple of years after that, and the Patriots come up for sale. And once again, all kinds of bidders come out of the woodwork. And one of them is Trump.
Okay, so some quick math on how to buy the New England Patriots in 1988. It was a kind of funny thing in the case of Donald Trump particularly, because Trump, like John Bon Jovi, actually, loved the Patriots. Loved the name, the iconography, the Americana, all of it. And Trump's people had told him, apparently, that between the team and the stadium, Foxborough Stadium, the Patriots were carrying $104 million in debt, which was too much for Trump to want to take on. Which was odd, because Trump, as he often alleged, was also a billionaire who could definitely afford it. But Trump couldn't buy the Patriots in the end, which simply meant that he remained obsessed with them for decades.